Hello and welcome to the class today. I'm really looking forward to today's class. We've got quite a way along with our little portrait course already, haven't we? So today we're doing the mouth. I've chosen a nice picture that's got good detail in the lips. Plus we can see the teeth as well. So we're going to learn how to do that. It's going to be quite exciting. So I think let's start off and I'll show you what the picture looks like. And then we'll take it from there. Alrighty, so I found this photograph on Pixabay. What I liked about this mouth was that there was a lot of detail. You got those little, almost like cracks in the lips. So I like that. And then obviously we want to learn how to do the teeth as well. So these teeth were showing up quite nicely. And then there wasn't too much detail around the mouth, and I was quite happy with that because I think we've done quite a bit of learning how to do the skin and the pore textures and so on. So I didn't want to have to concentrate on that in this class. Today we're tackling the mouth. Alright, so let's go over to the drawing itself. Alright, so there is a printout. If you're a patron, you can hop onto the website and print out the PDF. So the PDF has got the reference photo. I've just cropped it to get just the mouth. And then here I've added what I would basically draw when I'm doing a mouth. Because if we take a look at the mouth itself, you'll see that there aren't any real hard edges. Let's bring that guy back for a second. What can I point with? Maybe this pencil here. No, his tip is too dark. Let's use that guy. Take a look at this edge over here. Can you see there's no hard edge? If the person is wearing lipstick, yes, then you've got a hard edge. But generally, you've got a soft edge over there and over here. You can't tell exactly where does the lip start or where does the lip end. There's always that little bit of a, I call it a no man's land or a little twilight zone all the way around. So we have to take care of that. So when I draw my outlines and stuff, I give myself a little bit of a gap. Can you see there? You would expect the line to be drawn over there, but I've drawn it over there. So a little bit inside the mouth. So that way you can give yourself a little bit of leeway so that you don't end up instantly making the mouth too large. So by starting off a little bit too small, you can gradually nudge it larger and larger to get it to look accurate according to the model. Alright, so then in these little ridges that you get inside the lips, unless the person has really dry lips, and the odd person that has really prominent ridges in their lips, it's actually more subtle than what you realize. So what I'll do is just look for one or two of the most prominent ones, like there and over there, and I'll put them in. I'll sketch them in for one main reason, and that's just to get the directions. Because these little ridges are going to curl to conform to the shape of the lip. So you have to get those directions correct, because they show you how that lip curls in. So I've added literally 2 there and 2 there, and that was all I needed. That should be enough to get you started with that curling. And then as far as the teeth is concerned, only that little outside ridge over there, and then there where the teeth meet have I sketched in. Here, can you see there's another tooth there, but it's quite dark. So I haven't even bothered adding in that little edge over there because we can't particularly tell where does that edge end. So by the time we've added this shading in here, it will appear automatically. Hi Christine and Val, great to see you. Hope you guys had a good holiday, and really nice to see you, Val. You've been scarce lately, must be a busy lady. And then take a look over here. There's one more line that I've added. So that there is your lip curls up, and then you've got, I call it, this is your bottom lip, and this here is also still actually part of the lip. I call it the lower lip. So it's the bottom lip and the lower lip. That's the top lip and the upper lip. This still curls over, and then your chin starts protruding out like this. So you end up with that kind of a situation there. So can you see what's happening? You've got that little bit of a shadow happening there, because your bottom lip is casting a shadow on the lower lip. And then your chin, because he's pointing upwards again, catches the light. So you've got that little bit of a shading happening there. And you need to show that shape where the chin comes out and meets the lower lip. So in this model, there is one place where you would normally mark as well, and that's here. That fulcrum over there, where you've got the left and the right hand sides of the upper lip, where they meet, you've got that little dent there, hey? So that little dent has a concave shading to it. So I would usually add a shading or a little marking, something like that. Very light and very subtle, but just so that I know where does this side of the upper lip turn into the fulcrum, so that you've got that little where the highlight and the shading, the shadow shading meet. And then also that fulcrum has a little meeting place here by the top and the upper lip. Quite confusing, all this top and upper lip and stuff, eh? But you've got all these little meeting places. So that's basically what you're sketching out. Alrighty, so that's basically what you end up with before you can get going. Alright, so the first thing that I'm always doing is looking for the overall tonal value. And I'm going to lay that in. Take a look and you'll see, look for pure white. There's only a touch of it, eh? There's a little speck over there. And there's a tiny speck over there. That's the only pure white we've got. Otherwise, all this has some tonal value. So I'm going to start off by giving myself that basic tonal value that I see over this drawing. So I take a sheet of paper, as we've been doing so far in the course, and use my 9B graphite stick, scratch over that, take my t-shirting material, and pick up some of this loose graphite that I've now transferred onto the paper. And now I'm going to use my cloth to lay down a basic little tonal value. So now, needless to say, the drawing that we're going to do is not as big as the paper. So I'm just going to make myself a quick little mark. It's around there and around there, just to have an idea of where to go or where to stop. Doesn't have to fill in the whole paper. So we'll give ourselves a bit of a border there. And this is quite handy if you're giving yourself a border on a piece of paper, because it looks great when you frame it, and you've got that little bit of white space around a drawing. So now you need to keep this white space clean. So there's several ways you can do it. The first one is draw yourself a little border like I've done now, and then just do all your sketch work and work as close and accurately to that line as what you can. And then right at the end, just carefully come and erase the little bits that you've gone over. The other way is that you get yourself a really low tack masking tape, but it has to be low tack. And then you stick that down on this edge over here. And that's where you can work right up and over that edge. And then right at the end, you just take your masking tape and you carefully remove it. But don't use regular masking tape. That will rip your paper. So I'm just adding a basic little flat shading over here. It's not going to be dark or anything. But that will now instantly allow me to erase any little highlights that I need. And this is also a great technique if you want to, let's say you don't want to use a template or something like that, you want to sketch it out freehand, then you do this, you add your nice little layer of flat tonal value using your cloth, and then you use your eraser and you do the sketch work out of that. And that way, if you've made a mistake, you just take your cloth, rub over it again, and ta-da, you're sorted. It's as though that mark you erased was never there. Where if you're drawing with a pencil, you'll often see those marks that you've erased. Okay, so all I'm looking for now is just an eraser. With a nice sharp edge, and I'll just go all the way along that line that I've drawn over there. And now you can see the amount of tonal value that I've added using the cloth. See that? It's a fair amount. Okay, so let me put the reference photo down in the corner. Let's maybe put it over there. And then we'll start with the left-hand side, and then we'll move over to the right-hand side. Because what I'm going to do now is I want to get just the bit of shading around the mouth roughly sketched in. So the whole step that I'm going to be doing now is with the cloth and the paper. So you'll pick up some of that graphite dust onto your cloth, and then you'll start drawing. So all we're looking for is just to create ourselves that basic shading that we see. So this here's that side of the cheek that you're starting to see. So there's a fair amount of tonal value on that. And then here, this is curling now in underneath the chin. Now when you're using the cloth like this, it's never going to give you the full dark. But it helps you really quickly just establish the tonal values, where they sit. Okay, let's pop that guy over there now. Alright, so here we've got that little dimple in the chin. So I'm going to try and work that in using this. So I'll put the darker bits over there, and I'm judging where that dimple is according to what I've already sketched out over there. It's roughly just to the right of this tooth over there. So it's in that vicinity there. Okay, let's put in this lower lip over there. And here's where that little line that we initially sketched in, that's where he comes in. And then here on this side we have quite a bit of shadow because she's got her hair that's casting a shadow on the face over here. So we'll start adding that in. Alrighty, then we have just a little bit of the nose in this vicinity over here, and the full trim. Got that little shadow piece over there where it's concave. You see how quickly we can work these kinds of things in. So today we're not going to worry too much about the nose. We've already done the nose. So I'm just going to do little suggestions of that. Right, so that full trim, you've got this side of the upper lip, it dents down, curling away from the light. It curls back up, catching a highlight, and then this side of the lip is darker again. So instantly I'm adding that little shading in there for myself. All with no hard edges. Can you see that? And already we can start to imagine a mouth appearing here just by adding these few little rough shadings in. Alright, let's go back to the photo over here. When you're working with lips, you have to really take care and look carefully at the angle, because the angle that they're at is going to determine if they light dark, and so on. Your top lip points downwards. So look carefully and you're going to see that the top lip is darker than the bottom lip, because that bottom lip is now pointing upwards. Look at these lovely highlights we have over here versus the lovely shadows we have over there. So here, where these two meet, you have that little transition area over here, which you also need to take care of. So let's work on that. All still with the cloth. So I'll start adding a little bit of a dark around there and there. Just off the lip like that. And that gives you that corner of the mouth. Okay, we'll start adding some tonal value in here. As this top lip curls in towards the teeth, it curls more and more away from the light, becoming darker and darker and darker. Hi Jopish, welcome. And Ria. Great to see you here, Ria. Hope all's going well with you. Alright, so let's get some of these tonal values in. So can you see there's nothing as dark as it needs to be yet. The cloth could never get you as dark as you need to go on your darkest tonal values. But it gets you started, and it gets you started really, really quickly. I mean, instantly, if I take that overlay away, instantly you can see that we're working with the mouth, hey? So that's pretty cool. As you draw using your cloth, the loose graphite that's on the paper is going to gradually become less and less, because you're picking it up, right? So every now and again, go ahead and just take your graphite stick or your pencil and just give it another layer. So I'm going to do that, but obviously off camera. Okay, so take a look over here. Here's also a bit of a shading happening over there. And that's all part of that lifting up of the chin. That there. Okay, great. Alright, so we just keep building up, getting us closer and closer to this, what the skin looks like. So those of you that have been with me for a while, remember years ago we did just a basic portrait drawing course, and the class that we did the mouth, most of the class was spent on doing this area around here. It's in the days before I developed this little technique with the cloth. So most of the class was spent shading all this skin around here, and look here, we've done it now literally within minutes. Drawing with a cloth like this really does save you a ton of time. Alright, let's get a little bit more tonal value in here with this, the nose area. Just to have something there, like that. Because I will more just suggest that there is something there for the nose without actually drawing it today. Okay, so there's that. And now if you're keeping your edges clean, now you'd go ahead and give him another clean. And that way you don't have too much build up that you try to erase afterwards. See there. Then you end up with a lovely clean edge. I'm not going to bother with that today. Alrighty, let's start by just darkening up these skin tonal values a bit more. So I'm going to go over to I think let's put I think we'll move the face down. Then we can put our pencil reference up over there. Alright, so that's a purple pencil. So that tells you it's a 6B using the legend at the top. Now I've got quite a bit of tonal value there already, eh? So I'm going to take my tracing paper and just lay that down so that I can put my hand on top of that. And that way I'm not smudging and dirtying my hand as I go along, because you can see how quickly the cloth work does dirty your hands. So like I said, because we've already done quite a bit of learning on how to do the skin and the pores and all those details, I'm not going to concentrate too much on this outside area today. I just want to get a very basic shading so that we can visualize the shape of the face, and then if there's time we can come back and fine-tune all of this and add more detail to it. If you haven't seen those classes on how to do the skin texture and the pores and everything, that is on the channel. Just go to the channel page and you'll see the classes listed there on YouTube or on the website. They're also there under the pencil drawing portraits section. So we do need to get this a bit darker, just so that you can see that the chin curls underneath. So I'll just pop that down, and then I use a cloth to soften up. The See over here needs a bit of a shading. So the cloth gets you a basic shading, and that shading is never perfectly smooth because you don't necessarily go over the same places the same amount of times. So it's always a little bit uneven. For example, can you see there? There's a lighter area. So you've got to come back in and just, I call it polishing. You're adding a little bit of tonal value there, and then you're polishing it smooth. Just to even out that skin. Okay, let's take a look. I think it's probably roughly around here. We've got that little dimple area. Like that, and this can go a little bit higher up. So the minute I've got a super shade, let's try that again without getting all tongue-tied and twisted. The minute you've got a super subtle shading, I'll get it right eventually, a super subtle shading, then I'm going to go over to the cloth. Okay, here it's going to go quite a bit darker because we've got all that hair there. Again, I don't think we'll draw the hair today. I'll have a separate class on hair. So we'll just draw the cast shadow as though that hair's not there. It's just out of picture. So I'm essentially just laying down tonal value and using the cloth to soften it. And I'm not pressing hard. Absolutely no pressure on the pencil. I'm letting the softness of the pencil do all the work for me. And as I do these shadings, I am now thinking of the shape of the face. Here you've got that cheekbone over there. So that cheekbone points upwards and it gets a highlight. And now this is at the bottom of that cheekbone. So feel on your face. It goes in here. And as it goes in, it curls away from the light and it becomes darker. And that's what gives you those different shapes that you're drawing. As I'm working, I'm not shy to do this. Feel on my face. Here's a cheekbone. Okay, so he points upwards. He's going to catch the light. Here's missing, and you see it's sort of, and feel it on your face. It goes in between the nose. It goes round like that. So here's a shadow underneath there, and so on. Don't be shy to do those kind of tests, I suppose you can call them, on yourself. You've got a free model available 24/7. Alright, and then here I can see this needs to go a bit darker. I'm going to not take it fully dark because I don't know where that ends yet. But just a little bit darker here. I can see this patch here needs to be, it's one of the darkest spots on the whole drawing. So I'll just initially darken this up a little bit. And this shadow here lifts up that whole lip. So this little shadow is actually really, really important. The darker you make this, the more that lip stands up. So you've got to take a look carefully at your model and see how much does that bottom lip curl up. Is it just a subtle curl? Then you don't make such a dark lower lip. If it's quite prominent like this model, then you can go ahead and be quite generous with your tonal value there. Get it nice and dark. So as I say, I'm not pressing hard whatsoever. I'm letting the pencil lay down tonal value. Just by adding layers and layers and layers. Kelly's asking what type of cloth I'm using. It's just a standard t-shirting material, Kelly. This is a t-shirt material I've had for years. You can see it's well used. It's one of my daughter's little old t-shirts from years ago. Any lint-free cloth will work though. Alright, so let's start getting a little bit of tonal value into this lip over here. He's darkest at the top, so we can pop some tonal value down there. And there's got a lovely highlight over there. Then he darkens up again as we curl around, as he curls around this way. So here in this highlight area, even though we did put that initial layer of tonal value down, I can see it's darker in between. So I do need those little areas of tonal value. So I'm going to add some extra tonal value there as well. Yeah, I think that's great. Can you see the dimension and the shape of the face all coming out at us already? Okay, so while we've still got the 6B in hand, or the 9B, I think I'll just use the sharper point though. I'm going to just add this in over here. So I think there I can possibly even... Let's go to that camera and let's get a bit of a closer view on that. I'm just going to fill this in. I'm not pressing hard. I can still erase all of this at any stage. But it's adding some contrast for me, some of that full contrast that we need to be able to judge the other tonal values that we need to put in. I'll always gradually build my tonal values up. And the idea with that is that, yes, I could instantly go and put this in super dark. But what if I've made a mistake? Then I can't erase it. It's really quick and easy. Once you've got a basic tonal value down and you know how your shadings are running, it's really quick and easy. It literally takes minutes to adjust those tonal values. a little darker or a little lighter or a little whatever. But if you've gone too dark and you've pressed hard and you've damaged the tooth of the paper, you flatten the tooth of the paper, you can't lift out anymore. So just adding that. Let's go back to the wider view again. Can you see there? It's giving you tonal value that will help you judge all the rest. They're just asking how long should it take you to make a picture like this? That's a very difficult question to answer, and I'm going to tell you why. Somebody like me, I've been drawing for many years. So, alright, let me just get going, and then I'll continue with that explanation. So we'll start here with the top lip, and then we'll work our way down. So I'm going to take an HB, and we'll start in this corner over here, and I'm gradually just getting the tonal values right. I'm not worrying about any of these curls or anything like that. I'm just worrying about the tonal values. Can you see it's darker here? It's darker in here, and all those kind of things. Once you've got those tonal values right, then you can come back in and add the details. So this whole process, never press hard. Keep using harder and softer pencils and a light pressure to get you those tonal values. Alright, so back to our story of how long should it take you to draw a picture like this? Somebody like me has been doing this for donkey's years. So it's going to take me a lot less time than it will take you, because my eye has been trained a lot longer to see the different tonal values and all those differences in tonal value, subtle changes and so on. So when you're first starting out, things are going to take you a lot longer. A drawing like this, because it's quite a big mouth, right? It could easily take you hours and hours and hours to draw, maybe even a day, but it doesn't matter. I always tell everybody, it doesn't matter how long it's taken you to draw it. It's the final result that matters. So you could draw a mouth like this in 15 minutes if you wanted to. And it could look good too, but you're never going to get the detail out of it. So if you don't want a detailed drawing, that's great. Then you can draw it in 15 minutes. You saw when I was using the cloth just to establish the basic shape and contours of the face and the lips and so on. It didn't take long. It was really quick. So for many people, stopping at that stage is enough. They're happy with that, and that's fine. So then it can take you really quick. Alright, so as I'm working here, I've got one or two little lines that I've left myself for the directions. So if you're scared you are going to lose that line, just come back in with your eraser and just carefully, every now and again, just lightly put it back in again. Christina's saying the dimple on the chin became more prominent when you added that little shadow in the lower lip. And yes, it will, because now you've got that contrast that you need for that dimple to now stand out, eh? And that's why contrasts are so important when you're drawing. I learned a saying from another artist. His name was Andre Grobler. And his saying was, you can't have bright lights without dark shadows. And I want you to think about that. To make something look bright, if everything around it is bright, it's not going to stand out as bright. But if you've got black right next to white, I mean, then your white looks really bright. Right? too many rhyming words there in that sentence. But if you've got really light yellows and pinks and stuff next to that white, it's not going to look that bright. Okay, so as I'm adding this in, tonal value in, I'm comparing the whole time with what I'm seeing on the screen to see whether I've gone dark enough yet or not. So you can see I'm just going in all sorts of directions. Sometimes I'm using a circular motion, sometimes I'm using straight lines. All I'm trying to do is get flat shadings. No textures or contours in these shadings. All those textures and contours will add in as we go afterwards. Okay, so now I keep asking myself, do I have enough contrast yet between the top lip and the upper lip? Let's maybe stand back to see. Not yet, eh? So that's my cue to continue. And if the HB is still getting me gradually darker and darker and darker, then I'm going to stick with it and just add more and more layers. If he's not getting me any darker and I feel I'm having to start pressing harder and harder, that's my cue to go over to a softer pencil, a B or a 2B maybe. Patricia's laughing at my saying donkey's ears. Yeah, it's just a common saying that we always say in our house. It just means ages ago. If you've been doing something for donkey's ears, you've been doing it for as long as you can remember. Okay, so now I'm getting to a point where my little lines are starting to disappear on me, so I'm re-establishing them. And yeah, these lines that you may draw in, chances are they're the darker ones. It doesn't matter if you're erasing them now and they're now suddenly lighter. That's fine. That's not a problem. Alright, so now I'm going to go over to the bottom lip. So let's move that guy up a bit. And I think I'll just stay wide, because it's still all basic shadings. And let's get the shape of that bottom lip right as well. So there's a tiny, just a smidgen of the bottom, a bottom tooth visible over there. So this lip over here, it's dark at the top. And then it goes darker here towards the side and obviously towards the bottom. Here, look really carefully, and you're going to see there's a little bit of reflected light on that little ridge there where the bottom lip and the lower lip meet. Let's just go to there. Can you see it over there? It's got a tiny little bit of reflected light over there. So I'm going to leave that, because it, as I draw, I'm going to leave that little reflected light bit over there, because that gives you a nice little separation between the bottom lip and the lower lip. So I quite like that. So Marianne is saying, anybody, what do you mean anybody can draw a mouth? It's not like anybody can draw like this. Anybody can draw a mouth, depending on how much experience you've got in drawing a mouth is going to depend on how well it comes out, right? I promise you, the first time I drew a mouth, it looked horrific. Absolutely horrific. But as you gain more experience and your eye becomes trained to spot these little tonal value differences, what you're drawing gradually becomes better and better and better. So there's two things that improve it. The first one is obviously technique. If you know what to do, then you're going to get a good result, right? If you know what you're doing. Let's say, for example, I know nothing about fixing cars. So if I try and fix my car, I'm going to do a terrible job. I'm going to hash it up, and I'm probably going to have a few spare parts left over afterwards as well, which I don't know where they fit. And my car's probably not going to ride pretty well after that. But if I now go and do a bit of studying and I learn how to fix a car, then I'll be able to do a bit of a better job. And eventually I'll be able to do it in my sleep. And it's the same thing here. I mean, drawing is just a skill. So here you've got just that little corner of the mouth. As these two meet, it gives you a little bit of a dent over there, and that dent causes a little bit of a very, very subtle highlight over there. So I'm adding that in. That super subtle little highlight there. And then here, as I'm doing all these shadings for the mouth, I'm essentially looking at the darkest tonal values on the lip, sorry. As I'm shading this lip, I'm looking for those darkest tonal values. Because I'm pressing soft, I can erase anything at any stage. So if I get the darkest tonal values in, then we can erase those highlights and they'll look great. Okay, I still need to go a little bit dark here on the bottom of the lip. So, and as you can see, I'm using the chisel point. I don't know if you noticed that. I'm using the chisel point. The chisel point gives you the smoother shadings. Alright, so here's something interesting. In this scene, the light is coming from the right to the left. We can see that because this is lighter than that. So by the same token, as this lip curls around like that, this side is pointing more away from the light, and this side over here is pointing more towards the light. Right? So this here is lighter than that. So this lower lip, we've got this guy casting a shadow over there. So this is making that appear darker than that, because you've got a little bit of a highlight over there. Okay, let's go over down to I think I'll go all the way down to a 2H just to get this little shading in over there. Maybe we can even try the cloth just to make that disappear over there. Yeah, that seems to be working, eh? Alright, so do you agree with me? We've now got the basics of that mouth in. We can see where everything is, and we've got the positioning of everything right, especially if you've just sketched this out. You haven't used a template or anything like that. You've sketched it out freehand. This is the stage now when you're moving things around. Because you're not pressing hard or anything yet, you can easily move things around and get all these little shadings correct, their positions. After this stage, it's not going to be so easy to do that. And that's why we never press hard at this initial stage, because it allows us to adjust and move things around. Alright, so that's that. We'll leave that at that. I think let's give ourselves a suggestion of the nose. So let's just bring that reference photo down to, I think all we've got from the template is roughly about, yeah, it's roughly about that. That is all we can see. So all I'm doing now to get that in, because I haven't drawn it in, there's no outlines for it or anything like that, I'm going to judge. If I draw myself a mental line down there, can you see it ends just to the right of the or just to the left of that left-hand tooth. The other option is you can say it ends just to the left of that corner. corner of the mouth. So then you do the same thing here on your drawing. You say, right there, I've got the corner of the mouth. Just come straight up. That's where that nose starts over there. So we'll sketch that over there. And then you take a look. The next bit, you've got the full trim piece. So there's sort of a bit of the middle of the nose, right? The root of the nose over there. So that comes over the top bulge of the left lip over there, which is there. So then that the nostril itself is going to end up around there like that. So you're judging new things with things that you already know. That guy over there, I think I did roughly estimate him in correctly the first time with a cloth. So that was a luck. Didn't need to move him. And then we've got this nostril over here, which also again seems to be over that bulge. There, like that. Okay, so now that we've got our positions, we can adjust our tonal values and stuff. Okay, so here I'm just going to get this, your nose itself also casts a shadow. So maybe let's go to an HB pencil. So it's not a hard edge over here. It's all just a shading. So I'll get that in and just soften him out to show that it's a shading. And then darken him up again and then soften him out. Darken him up, soften him out. So depending on how the light falls, your nose casts a shadow on the upper lip. So you've got to look out for that, because that shadow lifts up the nose off the face. Okay, let's get that shading there. So everything is quite dark, and all these shadings are quite subtle. here's a little bit of a highlight happening over there. Just for the, as this part of the nostril here catches a bit of catches a little bit of light. So I'll take my kneaded eraser and just tap out that shape over there. Holding it reasonably flat, and don't worry if it goes too light. That's what we've got there. I think that's close on where we were going to go on with the nose. I said we don't want to. I don't want to go too far into these bits. It's all about the mouth today, but we do need to get suggestions of the stuff around it. Just a few little shadings there. That should do the trick. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to that top lip and let's start adding some detail in there. Before we continue, I want to briefly tell you about my real-time paint and draw along art classes on my website. For a very small amount, you can get access to over 400 paint and draw along tutorials where you pack out your art supplies and you follow along as I show and explain to you in step-by-step detail how to complete each project. There are classes in acrylic, oil, watercolor, pencil, soft pastel, and even lesser known mediums like pen and ink and sketchboarding. There's a link in the description below. Take a look. You'll be amazed at the awesome classes available there. Alrighty, let's continue from where we left off. And let's start getting all those lovely details and contrasts in there. Okay, so Scars is asking, is that a cloth I'm using for blending? Or is the cloth for blending or for applying the graphite? Well, both. In the beginning, we were using this, sorry, let's just go back to the wide to answer that question. In the beginning, you're using your paper that you've now scratched the graphite onto. So then I'm literally using the whole cloth like that, picking up as much graphite as I can to lay down that initial tonal value. Then I start, later on, I put my finger inside the cloth. So now I'm picking up just little bits of graphite at a time in order to do more detail work like these kind of shadings over here, because now I need to get the graphite in at specific places. So it's not like a flat wash of color anymore, right? Or not a flat wash of tonal value. It's specific amounts of tonal value, more here, less there, and so on. So that's why I use it like this. But then you get to places like we were doing over here. You'd put down some tonal value. Now you just need that tonal value to very gently blend away. Then you can take this guy without picking up new graphite, and you can just soften that edge of that graphite that you've put down. So this cloth is super versatile in that regard. You can use it for multiple things. Pretty handy, eh? Alrighty, so now we need to be a bit more brave with our tonal values, because now we need to go darker and darker to start getting the full range of tonal value, because we've established all the shapes and we're happy with their positions and so on. So now we can be bold, and now we can start adding detail in as well. When I do that, I like to start at the darkest areas. So I'm going to start in the dark area and just gradually work my way lighter and lighter. Okay, so for now, I'm still just establishing tonal value in the dark areas by laying more and more layers down. So I'm using the silver pencil or the grey pencil, so you can see that's a 2B. Think of it this way. In the dark areas, you don't get detail. So that's what's nice, to establish those contrasts. So you get your darks in, and then you gradually, out of that dark, start going lighter and lighter and pulling in more and more detail. Here I want a good contrast between the top lip and the bottom lip. Make sure you get a found line over there. So I'll do that. Add enough contrast for those guys to stand out. Because that found line that you've got between the top and the bottom lip gives you distance and separation between the two. And Dev, now this is also where you can see how it's going to depend on how long your drawing is going to take you. You asked earlier how long would a drawing like this take. This is where the time comes in. It didn't take us too long to establish the basics, but now the more detail we add, the longer it's going to take. So for some people, their patience maxes out at a point, and then they just call it a day. And other people just use this for relaxation. So they quite happy to sit and put in every last little detail. So my aim here is not to add in every last detail, but my aim here is to show you how to do it so that you can continue and add in every last detail if you want to. Alrighty, so now we can get to some nice detail. Let's zip back to the photograph and let's go and see what does it look like. What does that detail look like? Okay, so we all know that there's like little cracks inside your lips. I don't like to think of them as cracks. I like to think of them as ribs or little hills and valleys. Because unless your lips are really, really dry and they literally are cracked, take a look and you'll see that it's gradual. It goes deeper in and it comes out again. It goes in, it comes out, in and out. So it's like little miniature hills and mountains that just happen to be running along the length of the lip in that direction, but in this direction it's just little bumps. And that's what you are drawing. You're looking for bumps because each of those bumps has a highlight and it has a shadow, right? So let's see. Let's see. How can I demonstrate that? Yeah, let's take a piece of paper. Let's just take a sheet of paper. And let's see if I can. I'm going to fold it like that. So this is your lips under a microscope. Now if only I had one more hand to hold this in place for me, then it would be easy. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. There, 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 and there. There we go. Okay. Look what happens. You've got... Oh, there we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. This here is your lip under a microscope. So in this case, our sun is also coming from the right to the left. So can you see on that one ridge, it's highlight, and then it goes darker, and then it goes lighter, and then it goes darker. And that's what you're doing. Let's go back to the photo. Lighter, gradually going darker. Inside the ridge, it's at its darkest, but then as it comes out of that ridge, it gets lighter again, then it goes darker. Then it goes lighter and darker, lighter, darker. And so it goes on. So now here on the inside, that ridge is at its darkest. And as it comes here, it goes shallower and shallower and shallower. So that contrast that you've got between the light and the dark side becomes less and less. And that's why it appears as though that ridge is gradually disappearing. It's just because it's becoming less deep. It's becoming shallower and shallower. So let's go and do that. Let's go to there. Let's pop our photograph down again. That should be enough zoomed in so you can see the different little ridges. So I'll start all the way down to a 2H. And now I'm going to use this and those initial lines that I sketched and start sketching in the most prominent ones. If you're busy with a commissioned drawing, then you're going to work on getting these most prominent ridges in. And you're going to put them in along the contour of the lip. So can you see the way I'm putting them in? They're not excessively dark or anything like that. And I'm just judging them according to stuff I've already got. For example, here I'm adding in that little ridge over there. That ridge meets up with where those two teeth meet. So I start there, and now I'm looking at the shape, because it's going to follow the contour of the lip the whole time. So as this lip curls around, those contours change. Let's get this guy, then we can draw on it. So let's take a pencil. Let's draw a few more of these contour lines in there. And you'll see what happens. Can you see how they've changed? They've gone from this direction, gradually straighter, until eventually they're upright, and then they change direction. Now they start curling that way again. All to match the contour of the lip. Okay, we were still working in this guy over here, hey? So let's get him in. The next major one I see is roughly in this area over here. And then there's some over here. So because I'm working with a 2H pencil, everything is super subtle. And that's great, because each of these guys is a shading. Remember, they're little humps and bumps. So I'm now able to shade all of these guys. Remember, our light is coming from the right to the left. So each of these guys on the right hand side is curling away from the light. So the right hand side is darker. So I'm going to give him a shading on the right hand side. Okay, now we can go to a kneaded eraser. So it's like this. I've taken my kneaded eraser and I've formed it into a nice sharp point like that. Now on the left hand side, because our sun is coming like this, so as that little bump over there points more towards the light, it's the piece that's closest to the light, is going to be in highlight. So I'm going to add that in. So it's going to be just to the right, or just to the left of these little shadows that you put in. And don't panic too much if it seems to be a little bit too light here at the moment. That's fine. We'll adjust the tonal values as we go. But instantly, as you've done that, can you see you've got like depth? The bigger the contrast, the darker that is, and the lighter this is, the deeper those ridges in the lips are. So I'm going to start with that. And now you can either use your pen-shaped eraser, or you can take this guy and form a chisel point just by pinching him like that. You see, it gives you a really thin little chisel point. One of the two. Now you're going to start adding in the finer ones. Those little details that you see over there, gradually start adding them in as well. Now they're not important, so you're going to just do your own thing. So what I usually do is, let me grab this piece of paper and I'll show you the movement that I do. I'm doing this. So as I'm drawing that line, I'm sort of squiggling the pencil. So if I had to exaggerate that, It's this. That kind of a thing. And that gives you that really odd. Can you see there? If you look at that under a microscope, it's like, yes, there's ridges running down like this, but they sort of got little veins running across them as well. So it's tiny little humps and bumps. And by tapping like that, using that sort of a tapping motion, it suggests that detail. So every now and again, come back in and just fold this guy over and create yourself a new chisel point. Because you're using that chisel point there like that, it doesn't take much for it to become dirty, because it's just that tiny little, corner over there. So you have to constantly fold him over to get a new little corner. Alright, so it's quite prominent here on this model. It's quite prominent over here. Then it becomes less and less. So I'm going to put over here, and as we go that way, I'm going to just space them out until eventually I'm not really adding anything. Just a few odd little goodies over there. Okay, let's continue around to this side and do the same thing. So now what's nice about this little tapping technique over here, let's say you get to a ridge and you see, but that ridge seems to be a little bit too dark. Then you just take these same little tapping motions and you add it over that ridge over there, and it instantly lightens it up and makes it less prominent and less deep. Alright, so let's continue on to the other side. Let's just get back to the 2HA. Add these little ridges in. Just the most prominent ones. Looking really carefully at their directions. And just try your best to get them accurate. I promise you, even the model herself does not know where those little cracks and lines actually go, where they are. But if you get them reasonably accurate, that's enough for you to get the likeness of that person that you need. And you're okay. For example, can you see on this model over here, her lip goes like a bit of a dent in, and then it comes out again. It's got a little lower part over here. So you've got to add that little bit of a... That's also all part of this cracking kind of detail. So you're going to gradually add that in, so that the lip does go a little bit of a dent over there, because that will give you the difference between getting a likeness of this person and or not. So I'm gradually working that darker until I can see it's closer to where it needs to be. Because it's darker over there, but it's also, you've got little, very subtle little valleys inside that as well. Okay, so they look good over there. Let's go over to our rounded point. Add the highlights in for our little humps and bumps. Are you now starting to see the details emerge? So now we've gone from really basic, just creating the shape, and now we've gone all the way to getting fine detail. Okay. Now what you want to work on is, now that you've got, let me stand back for a second. Let's go to, there. So can you see at this stage you've got lots of detail in there. In fact, you've got too much detail in there. And that's exactly where you want to be at this point. Now you're going to subtle all those details back up again. And as you do, you're going to make sure that by the time you're done, your contrasts and tonal values are correct. And this edge over here is correct. So you're going to take a look at this edge over here and see, how does it end? Does it end sharp? Does it end in a quick shading? Does it end in a slow shading? For example, here, it ends in a slow shading. It's a gradual rounding from the inside of the mouth to the side of the cheek. Here, however, it's very, very subtle. At the top there, you can barely tell where does the top and the upper lip meet. Barely tell. So all I'm doing here is just going over and softening up that tonal value over there. Just adding an extra layer of tonal value over that whole area over there. What does that do? It softens up those heavy highlights that you've added. And you can come back in here with the darker guys and darken up. I think we can even go all the way up to, say, a 9B or a 6B. Yeah, let's just use the 6B. Because it is nice and dark in here. Even though I'm not, if you had to, at this point, you can start pressing hard. Because everything is in place. On this lip, we're busy with the finishing touches now. So is this process starting to make sense now? In other words, you get the basics right, just the absolute basics. That tells you where everything is, and you make sure that your shape and positionings and stuff are correct. Then you come back in, you add the detail in. And your detail that you add in is not necessarily correct. It's close, but it's not correct. So then you come back and you fine tune that detail that you've put in. By the time you're done with that, then you're done. Think of that initial detail stage as putting in the detail when there's lots of light. And now at the fine-tuning stage, you're coming back and you're just adjusting the amount of light that's there. Okay, so here I'm even just using my cloth just to fine-tune and get that tonal value correct over there. Okay, let's move over to the other side. How are we doing for time? Time's not too bad. Like there, where we were subtling, making those highlights more subtle, here I'm actually having to darken up the darks. Those cracks aren't, or the valleys aren't as dark as they need to be yet. Okay, over here on this edge of the mouth, also nice gentle little softening over there. All this needs to go darker. Okay, so I'm just working on tonal values now. Oh, this here is still too light. Gradually pushing it darker and darker. Maybe you can't get the top lip too light because it's pointing downwards. And then you won't get that that nice contrast that you need for when you do the bottom lip. Okay, now I'm going to go over to a sharper pencil and just fine-tune a few of these little shadings over here, just to make them a bit more subtle and a bit more gradual. So I've got the sharp point pencil now. So now you can come back in with very specific details. Let's go closer in. Also just want to get myself a little brush. Here we go. Just a little brush just to blend all these guys into each other. You can also use your blending stump. Don't forget about your blending stump. You can also use him now at this stage, just to get finer details in, because he's going to pick up tonal value, and you're going to use that to put it at different places. Or you can use him to pick up from your paper there as well. Okay, let's say use an HB. Let's just get some of these little dark cracks just plotted in. So now you're at that point where you have to ask yourself, how much detail do I want? Do I want to put in every last little ridge and detail into the lips? Or do I need, am I happy to stop now? So I'm going to continue a while here so that you can see how to add all that super fine detail in. And then from there you can decide. So like here, there's lots of little really fine ridges. Let me go to just the photograph on its own for a second. Can you see those super fine ridges that you've got over here? There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. But as you come to here, those ridges soften up and they just become little undulations. So lots of detail over here, but as you go to here, you're going to gradually soften up those details. So I'm using that tapping, squiggling motion that I showed you earlier over here to get those ridge details in over here. Then as we come to here, I'm gradually going to stop. Just use like tapping motion. And then eventually we're going to get to here and just the lightest little taps. Where you added them in before, And that will just suggest those undulations. Alright, I'm going to go over to an H and just push this a little bit further. Just past that line that we initially sketched. The idea being you want that line to just disappear. Because that initial line of yours was less than the actual, or how do we put it? It was inside the lip, right? With pencil, you're generally drawing from light to dark because you're starting with a blank page. But I like to establish a bit of tonal value in the beginning. Christine is asking, is drawing from light to dark usually the method to use, or is it just for portrait drawing? Well, you start off with light and then you gradually go darker. But I do always like to add a little bit of tonal value as soon as possible, like we did there in between the teeth. Alright, so over here you've got a little highlight over here with a filtrum. So I'm just tapping that out. And then I'll just soften it, either just using my finger or with a cloth. But it would have to be a clean part of the cloth. Then you'll find that the lip often has a little highlight running just off the edge. It's almost as though it's got a little piece that curls up. It's some people it's quite prominent, other people it's quite subtle. So you would just pop that in and just gently tap it in. And then outwards. Again, you can just use your finger or a Q-tip or something like that. To make it subtle. Let's see, I've got a Q-tip here. So you lift it out and then you soften it back up again. Just until you've got that right amount. Because I can see she's got a little highlight over here and then it disappears. Then you've got this little that little gradual shading happening over there. Alright, I could now continue on that side, but I'm not going to. I think you can see the detail over there. Let's continue and do the bottom lip, and then we do the teeth. So I'll go to there for now, and then I can just adjust this one camera to show onto the bottom lip. Alright, so now it's back to getting your tonal values correct. So again, I'm going to concentrate on the left-hand side of the lip. And as I get this tonal value right, if I'm losing my contour lines that I initially drew in, I'm going to just lift them back out again. Using an eraser to make sure that they're in place. So now compare, while we're broad like this, compare the difference between the top and the bottom lip. Can you see the top lip had a lot more super fine details in it? Whereas here, these little values are a lot more chunky. I think that's about one of the best words I can think of. Alright, so let's go to there. And let's start adding those guys in. So it's just using the kneaded eraser. And I'm just going to tap in roughly where these guys are. If they are too fine, like I can see some of the details here is really fine, then go over to your pencil shaped eraser, your pen shaped eraser, and make sure that the tip is cut nice and sharp at a 45-degree angle. Let's do that. Can you see there? You've got that really sharp 45-degree angle cut into that eraser. That allows you to do these nice fine lines. That you get like around this area here. So I'm using that same technique that we did at the top on this fine detail over here. That little tapping, squiggling action. And I'm being really careful to follow the contour of the lip. So don't worry if it's too prominent again. As before, we'll adjust it. Just get the detail in. Doesn't have to be perfect straight off the bat. As you work these guys in, just cover that one up. As you work these guys in, when you put them in, compare with their positions with other things that you already know where they are. Okay. Our detail is coming along quite nicely here. We'll add some of the basic here on the other side. Just so that we've got some of it in. Some of those ones are quite chunky on the side, so we can go over to the kneaded eraser. That'll help us get those marks in sooner. There, can you see I'm lifting that out? Because that gives me that contrast we need between the left and the right, or the top and the bottom lip, sorry, to create that separation between the two, to show that there's an angle change. Alright, so we've got our detail in there now. So now it's a case of just coming in and adjusting things. For example, we can see now over here, we need to go darker. And then there's little places in between it also need to go darker. So we'll darken all that up. Here needs to go a little bit darker. In actual fact, over here, there's actually a few little darker lines and things as well. There's a little bit that's darker over there in general, then that gradually goes lighter to there, so that's great. Okay, let's just grab our brush and just soften everything up. Now I'm going to take an 8B, and now we can get this inside of the mouth really dark. We're happy with it now. We know it's correct. So we can get that full contrast in there. He's good to go. Right, let's stand back. Let's do that. And let's see where we're at. Do that. And see where we're at. Right, so we can still do a little bit more darkening up in this area over here. Especially around here. Because, I mean, we haven't even used an 8B in this area yet. So it's darkest at this area here. And then he fades lighter to that side. And he fades lighter to this side. So at this point I'm just going to concentrate on this side. Can you see that lovely little reflected light there now? And as we come up over here, it becomes a lot more subtle, and you can't tell where the bottom lip and the lower lip are. Can't tell where they meet. Let's go to a 4B. And obviously if you've gone too dark, then you just use your kneaded eraser, just tap it lighter. It's not a problem. But this is quite dark, so I'm going to continue to darken him up. And in between some of these ridges, it's reasonably dark. So I'll just continue to darken all that up. Okay. And now on the bottom lip, you're back at that point where you have to decide how detailed do I want to go on this lip. If I want to go super detailed, then you're just going to continue. Let's zoom back in again. You're going to continue with your small eraser and fine sharp point pencils and gradually work in finer details to get it more and more accurate according to the drawing, or according to the photograph, sorry. All the while using that little squiggling tapping motion that I showed you earlier. And then that sharp edge of the eraser. The more detail you want in this, the more patient you need to be. Alrighty, I think I'll leave that side of the... I'll leave that side. Here's a little bit subtle. Now that you've got all that really dark in, check these tonal values again. Make sure you're still happy with them. Okay, now let's go over and I'll show you how to do the teeth. So teeth are interesting. For a start, they're not white. Can you see there? You'd expect to have just the white of the paper. Ta-da, teeth done. No, not at all. Your teeth have got shape. They've got roundness. They've got little humps and bumps in them. And you can see it nicely over here. Take a look at this tooth over here, for example. It's curved away from the light over here. It comes up. It goes in. It comes back up again. And then it curves away from the light again. You see that? So it's not a flat tooth. The same with this one as well. It comes up, it gradually goes in, it bumps up, and it goes back down again. And you can see it by that contour as well. Can you see there? We said it came up and then quickly bumped up. Look there. There's your bump over there as well for that. This tooth over here, you can see that bump in the tooth quite prominent. It comes up, a little flattish piece, bumps down, back up again, flattish piece, and then it curls back around. Then, the next thing you have with the tooth is that your top lip casts a shadow on the bottom lip. Can you see it? There's the shadow line running all the way along there. So it's there, 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 and there. There's your whole shadow line right there. So you have to do that shadow in order to get your teeth looking realistic. So a shadow works like this. It's dark right up against the object, and then it fades lighter away from the object. So look there, your shadow is dark over here. It's gradually getting lighter and lighter and lighter to over here till that shadow ends. Then, boom, you've got your light from the room or whatever hitting over here. Why it goes gradually darker again is because that tooth is curling back down again, because here's the flat surface of the tooth, but the edge of it curls in. And the second reason could be the globe at that exact point over there. So it's brightest over there, and the light itself is becoming darker as well. Then you've got, because of the tooth is not just flat, it's got height or depth, it curls away there, and it curls away there on the edges. So can you see you've got a flatter, flattish area over here, because we know it's got humps and bumps, but then it quickly curls away over there, and it quickly curls away over there. And now when the two teeth meet, you get a valley in exactly the same way as we had little valleys over there. You got the same thing happening over here. It goes darker into the valley, and then lighter as it comes out. Darker into the valley, lighter as it comes out. So let's go and do that on the drawing. Let's see, maybe we can take that photograph and let's pop him down in that corner this time. So to get that basic little tonal value on that tooth, I generally try and find out what's the overall tonal value of the tooth, and it seems to be sort of in this area over here. That seems to be a good general color to put down. After that, we can go darker to there, and then just lift out that little highlight. So I'll zip my paper, my cloth. Let's tone those teeth down. Just like that. It took seconds and it saved you ages of shading, I promise you. Now I'm going to do one tooth at a time. So I'll start here with this main tooth over here. Let's get that right. We know he's darker over there. So you'll often find that you have a bit of a lost line over here where the tooth and the lip meet, because they're both essentially in full shadow over there. I think let's just go over to a flat, a chisel pointer. Six B's maybe a bit dark. Okay. Let's use a 2B. Let's use a 2B. So we can always darken up. It's not so easy to lighten up. So now the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking for just the basic shape, that darkening up towards the outside edges, because that gives you the basic shape of the tooth. Now shades lighter now in like this. And now I'm looking for the shadow. I'm looking for the cast shadow. And I'm shading that cast shadow in. So unless you've got yourself a nice small little brush to do that last little softening up, I'm going to just use an earbud, a Q-tip, and just soften up that shading. Like that. And I'll use my eraser. So I think I'll just use a kneaded eraser. I'll form it into a nice little round, fine round tip, like over there. It's not sharp. Let's start working in that little highlight. So now I'm going to use this little highlight over here that I'm lifting out to show that undulation of the tooth where it goes up, a little bit down, and then back up again, and so on. So we get that, and I'll just tap that away. To fade him downwards. And if necessary, you can even use now your pen-shaped eraser just to really press really hard at places to really lift out all the graphite to get a good shading over there. Okay, so I'm just fine-tuning my shadings here. And just making sure I'm getting these contrasts correct, or more accurate. Okay, let's move over to the next tooth. Now this tooth over here is never going to be the same tonal value as that one over there. It's going to be different because he's pointing at a different angle. So you have to really look out for that. So I'm going to get the basic shape right. Those outside edges, get them correct. To make sure that the tooth curls towards each side. Then I'm going to get the shadow correct. Dark at the top. Going lighter downwards. And I'm comparing this tonal value with the tooth next to it. And I'm checking, must this tooth be lighter or darker? Okay, and then here, there's another little hump and bump in that tooth. So I'm getting extra tonal value down there. He's also going darker towards this side. What's cool, because you've already added that, you can shade straight into that dark. It doesn't matter Okay, let's go over to an H to get that even darker. Okay, so can you see he's now darker than the guy next to him? Go to the next tooth. So there is a little bit of gum over there. So unfortunately there isn't too much gum to show you, but the way the gum works is it's darker than the surrounding teeth, obviously. So you put in that little triangle shape, but the edge of it is a very quick, sharp shading. Because that gum, the skin gets thinner and thinner until it meets the tooth. So you put in that little shading over there. Alright, let's go back over to an H and let's tackle this guy over here. Let's get his shape right. Nice little, you can distinctly see he's curling over on this side, eh? It's actually a little bit of a found line between the right hand side of this tooth and the left hand side of that tooth. So as you can see, teeth are just a lots of little short shadings in them. So you have to be quite, you have to look carefully, you have to be quite observant. So now I'm getting the shadow being cast. And here I'm getting that curling over of the tooth at the bottom. There's a little bit of a curling over in that corner over there. And here still that little bit of a found line between the left and the right hand side. So I'm working on that. Get this cast shadow a little bit darker. Should be fine for now. Let's lift out his highlight. I'll just use the pen-shaped eraser because it's a nice sharp line over there. And then we can use the kneaded eraser to tap out that shading towards the inside of the tooth. There I'm seeing a little bit of a subtle highlight over there as well. Okay, and then the tooth next to it. I'll even just use a 4B on that one. He's quite dark. So again, you've got that little bit of, just a little bit of gum over there. See, I'm going to work on getting the main, because you can't really see that tooth, right? So I'm just going to work on getting any kind of shapes I am seeing over there. Just work on getting that right. And once I can see it right, like there's a little bit of a little piece over there. Once I've got that right, then I'll just go over everything, get that tonal value correct. Okay, let's come back in here with a 6B. Now that we've got those teeth in, we can see here's little areas in the top lip where we can strengthen up our tonal values. And by strengthening up these tonal values, you're getting that nice curl in. That nice curled in effect. Okay, just double checking my tonal values, making sure they're good. On the teeth as well. Okay, let's stand back and let's see where we're at. Right, so all I need to do now is just fine tune. So let's start off just by using a brush or something just to soften all these tonal values. There we can work on fine tuning them again. Alrighty, I think we'll leave it at that. It's given you a good look at. We now obviously haven't done that, so let's just do that. That gives you a good idea on how to get all those details into the lips and the teeth. Let's maybe do that. that. Where is his position? Somewhere around there, eh? So we'll go to over there. So if you've got any final questions, go for it. Fire away and ask me. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the class. Total Sub is asking, are wax-based pencils better or oil-based pencils? I think you're referring to colored pencils. To be honest, I'm not too big on working with the colored pencils. So I think you'd better asking the colored pencil guys. What we're working with here today is graphite pencils, which is again something different to the colored pencils. There's a huge debate on the guys that do work with the colored pencils, whether the wax or the oil-based ones are better. If I had to hazard a guess, I would probably go for the oil-based ones. So sorry, I don't have a better answer to your question, Total Saber. Maria, yes, practice makes perfect. Just keep at it. And then Kelly's asking, is there a better brand than the other? Any reputable brand pencil, Kelly, would be great. I like the Tombow brand, but I also use the Stadler pencils. I use them. And what's the other brand that I've got here? And then I also use just, there we go, the Faber-Castell. Those guys. So I've got the Faber-Castell, they're good ones. The Stadler pencils are the good ones. And let's see if I can find the Tombow. The Tombow one for you as well. I use those pencils. They tend to have a nice smooth grind on the graphite. With the really cheap pencils, I find what happens is that they don't grind the graphite fine enough before they create the actual pencil lead itself. So you have little hard pieces, especially with your 2H and harder pencils. You have those hard little bits inside them, where with these more professional quality pencils, they've taken care of that and made it nice and fine for you, so you don't have that problem. I'm glad you enjoyed the class, Eugenia Snowman. Maria's asking, is there a section on how to make the chisel point on your pencil? Yes. On my website, the link is below, and on YouTube there's my how to draw. Just search for how to draw on my channel or on the website. Then you'll find the basic class. So it's a real, this is a pencil class. It's got the absolute basics. I assume you know nothing, and I show you which equipment I use and the different grips I use and the different how to sharpen your pencils the way I do. Because I have two sets of pencils. I have the sharp point and I have the chisel point, because they're both good for different things. Yeah, Kelly, your standard little pencils that you buy that the guys use at school, they're no good. They're no good. They're only good for real basic drawings, you know, when you're just getting started and so on, it's fine. But when you the minute you start drawing a bit more seriously, you'll find that those guys they just don't cut it. Yeah, you'll enjoy that class, Maria, if you're just starting out. It gives you a really good grounding. There's actually a little bit of a sequence you can follow there if you want. You can follow the first one is how to draw. Let me just get to there, and then I can tell you the exact sequence that you want to take. So if I go to the website and I say classes, pencil drawing. Generally, on the website, if you the top classes are the new ones, and as you scroll down, they get older and older. But no, yeah, right in the beginning, I did a sequence where I assumed you knew nothing, then I built you up. So that gave you a good grounding, and then the stuff got gradually more and more difficult until you could pick and choose whatever class you want. So the first one is the Learn to Draw, Introduction to Drawing. And then there's a spoon, and then garlic and onions, and then there's a rose, there's a glass, then there's apples. So if you scroll up, you'll see them on the website. After you've done apples class, then after that you can do any sequence you want. Then you have that real basic grounding. You will understand your tonal values. You will understand how to use your pencils, which pencil to use at which time, and so on. All that will make perfect sense then. Alrighty guys, so I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you do, just don't forget to please don't forget to do that, so that you can be notified next time there's a live class happening. The next class, I think we've got to still do the ear, and we still got to do the hair. So I think we'll tackle the ear. We'll do him, and then we'll leave the class, the hair class for last. Next week I do pencil and then painting, pencil and painting. So next week we'll do some painting. So in the 2 weeks time, we'll see you for the pencil. That's if you're in the live. Obviously, if you're watching the replay, there's a good chance it's available already. Just take a look on my channel or on the website. So if you do want to learn some more pencil drawing, I've got tons more classes on my website. The link is below. Go and take a look. It's a really good price. So I'll see you then. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.